Baltoro's ice leads climbers to K2, while Atabad Lake formed suddenly in 2010 after a catastrophic landslide. In this video, I'll show you Pakistan's hidden wonders and oddities, like claims of centenarians in Hunza and a meadow named by a German climber at Nanga Parbat's base. Perched at roughly 3,700 meters, Rati Gali Lake is one of the few high-altitude alpine glacial lakes on Earth that transforms into a mosaic of turquoise and Do you know Rati Gali Lake is fed by hidden cirque glaciers that grind rock into a fine, light-reflecting silt, causing its water to glow like liquid jade. Approaching from Dewarian, the ascent cuts through silver birch forests that give way to carpets of blue poppies and wild buttercups above the treeline. By late June, meltwater swells the basin, and the shoreline dissolves into streams threading through meadows, connecting the lake to the larger Neelam watershed below. The lake's surface behaves like a living canvas, shifting color with sun angle, cloud cover, and the density of glacial flour suspended in the water. Locals say the same patch of shore can feel like a mirror in the morning and a painting by dusk. Beyond its beauty, Rati Gali is a natural barometer. Hikers can read the year's snowpack and glacial health by the size and timing of its summer expansion. That seasonal breath links the lake to villages downstream, where meltwater timing dictates fields, grazing cycles, and old festivals. The trek to the lake is as much a transition in worldviews as in elevation, trading crowded roads for silence, and then for a sudden horizon of ice and water. Campfires at the edge radiate steam into the thin air, while stars explode with clarity, revealing constellations obscured in lower valleys. Rati Gali's basin also hides primitive moraines and abandoned ice-carved amphitheaters that tell a colder, wilder past of the region. Researchers trace those ridges to understand how glaciers here have retreated and rebounded across centuries. In late summer, rare alpine lilies push through gravel, attracting shepherds and photographers who prize the brief, intense bloom. Their timing is fragile. One early thaw or late freeze can erase the season in a matter of days. As climate patterns shift, the lake has become both a pilgrimage site for wonder and a frontline indicator for change. Visiting Radi Gali now is to witness a living archive, water, stone, and ski keeping time together. From Radi Gali, the valley funnels memories downstream, leading travelers toward bamboo groves and the next high lake that quietly echoes its story. Each step away carries the lake's silver light into villages, marketplaces, and the woven songs of the Neelam Valley. If you listen closely at dusk, you can hear the slow pulse of meltwater, a rhythm that has sustained these slopes for millennia. Baltoro Glacier in Pakistan is one of the longest glaciers outside the polar regions, stretching roughly 63 kilometers through the Karakoram. Do you know Baltoro's ice corridor snakes past some of the planet's highest peaks and the legendary Concordia Junction? Walking the Baltoro is like tracing an ancient river of ice that has carved moraine walls, frozen seracs, and narrow ice falls over millennia. Its surface hides stories of avalanches, glacier surges, and paths that have linked remote Balti and Waki communities to high pastures. From its tongue at the village of Ascoli, the trek rises through juniper-scarce valleys and then opens into the broad glacial corridor, where peaks pierce the sky. At Concordia, where Baltoro meets the Godwin-Austen Glacier, hikers stand amid a ring of giants, K2, Broad Peak, Gasherbrum and Tooth, an assembly found nowhere else on Earth. Yet the glacier is not merely a backdrop for mountaineering. It is a living chronicle of climate written in ice, showing thinning snouts and shifting moraines that scientists now study closely. Measurements taken over decades reveal subtle retreats and surge events that hint at a fragile balance between accumulation and melt. Local guides read this glacier like a map, timing climbs and choosing routes through constantly shifting ice bridges and crevasse fields. Their knowledge connects Baltoro to nearby valleys and passes, the same routes that traders and pilgrims used for centuries to move between Hunza, Skardu, and the Indus Plains. For those who press farther, the Baltoro leads to the high alpine amphitheaters of the Gasherbrums and to the granite walls of the Trango Towers, linking hard rock climbing to high-altitude ice travel. Crossing from Baltoro over Gondogoro La drops you into the Hush Valley, where the human scale of stone and snow suddenly returns and villages nestle under the gaze of giants. In the roar of wind and the silence between footsteps, Baltoro speaks of isolation and connection, of ecosystems sustained by seasonal meltwater, and of cultures shaped by harsh beauty. Photographs capture dramatic panoramas, but the glacier's true narrative is tactile. The crunch of blue ice, the smell of cold, and the fragile spring flowers that cling to moraines. Conservationists warn that protecting Baltoro means protecting the water sources for millions downstream, tying a remote ice stream to cities and farms far below. And as you step off the glacier toward lower valleys, the connection becomes clear. Baltoro's fate will shape rivers, livelihoods, and the future of Pakistan's mountain heart. To understand Baltoro is to read a living archive. Each crevasse an entry, each melt season a chapter in a changing climate story. Join the people who study it, the climbers who respect it, and the villagers who live downstream. And you'll see how a single glacier threads remote summits to the pulse of a nation. The Badshahi Mosque in Lahore rises like a red sandstone crown, its 3 marble domes and towering minarets visible from across the city. Built by Emperor Aurangzeb in 1673, it was once the largest mosque in the world and remains one of the finest examples of Mughal architecture. The mosque's vast courtyard can hold up to 100,000 worshippers, turning it into a sea of humanity during Eid prayers. Intricate pietra dura inlay, bold calligraphy, and geometric tile work cover its prayer hall and gateways with almost theatrical detail. Unusually, the mosque was later used by the British as a cavalry stable and garrison, leaving scars that restorers later carefully reseat. Those layers of history are visible in the weathered sandstone and in the careful restorations that blend Mughal grandeur with colonial marks. That light draws photographers, pilgrims, and quiet observers who come not just to photograph, but to witness a living heritage. Conservation efforts today balance tourist access with preserving worn stone and fragile inlays, a continual negotiation between past and present. Scholars and craftsmen work together here, using old techniques and new science to keep the mosque breathing for another generation. Visiting Badshahi Mosque is therefore both an encounter with monumental architecture and a passage through the layered history of Lahore. As you step out of its courtyard and toward the fort, the story continues, each arch and alleyway nudging you deeper into Pakistan's living past. Listen for the storytellers who still gather at the mosque's edges, recounting tales of emperors, poets, and everyday lives that shaped this city. Their voices link the stone to the present, reminding visitors that Badshahi is not a museum piece, but the heart of an ongoing offsoi. Rising like a jagged crown above the Hunza Valley, the Pasu cones in Pakistan form one of the planet's most dramatic serrated ridgelines, carved by ancient glaciers. Do you know that the cones' skyline is actually a sequence of 6 spires, whose sharp silhouettes are the result of rare tectonic uplift and differential erosion? From the Karakoram Highway, you can watch these granite teeth pierce the ski highway, their shadows stretching over terraced orchards and the green ribbon of the Hunza River. Locals in Pasu village say the peaks change faces with the light, revealing hidden gullies that feed down into the Batura Glacier system. Hikers who follow faint herder trails discover rock-banded moraine and alpine meadows that transition seamlessly into the ice-fed streams below. The cones themselves are an active classroom for geologists who map the collision between the Indian and Eurasian plates, a confrontation that built the Karakoram. Seasonal streams polish the lower flanks, while wind-driven frost shatters the upper reaches, giving Pasu its razor-edged profile. You can stand at the Pasu Suspension Bridge and watch glaciers calve silently into turquoise meltwater that dances toward the Hunza River. Beyond the bridge, the road climbs toward the Borith Lake wetlands, where migratory birds glimpse the cone's reflection in still water. Photographers time their visits to catch what locals call the silver hour, when the peaks glow like bronze and the valley exhales mist. Traditional apricot orchards thread between stone houses, their ancient irrigation channels channeling glacier melt into terraces that sustain village life. Cultural ties run deep here. Pamiri songs and Waki stories often feature the cones as guardians that watch over the valley. As climate shifts, scholars worry about the changing rhythm of melt and avalanche, making Pasu an urgent place to document on-the-ground change. Yet despite those threats, the landscape still offers moments of startling solitude, where a single hawk drifts above serrated summits. Every turn on the Karakoram Highway reveals a new perspective. One moment, the cones are distant silhouettes. The next, they loom close enough to count the crags. And when you follow the valley upward, those crags give way to high alpine passes that link Pasu to the broader Karakoram spine. To visit Pasu is to trace the story of mountains, glaciers, rivers, villages, and roads braided together by time and human tenacity. In the shadow of these cones, you realize how fragile and powerful this place is, and why it keeps drawing explorers back for another look. reflect four distinct hues in a single frame, a phenomenon found in only a handful of places worldwide. Do you know Naltar Valley's lakes can shift from turquoise to emerald to deep indigo within hours as glacial melt and mineral flows rearrange light? High above the Gilgit River, conifer forests guard a hidden basin where granite peaks spill meltwater into mirror-like pools. Those pools are ringed by wildflowers and pine, but their colors come from suspended minerals, microscopic algae, and the angle of the sun. In winter, the same slopes become Pakistan's oldest skiing terrain, where skeletal trees and powdered ridges make a stark contrast to summer's kaleidoscope. Locals still tell stories of caravans passing through on ancient trade routes, linking Naltar to Hunza's orchards and the high passes beyond. Hiking from lake to lake reveals sudden changes. One basin a clear aquamarine, the next a glassy cyan edged with silver silt. Scientists and shepherds both visit to study and to harvest medicinal herbs because Naltar's microclimates support rare alpine flora found nowhere else in South Asia. Wildlife there is elusive but present. Brown bears, ibex, and the occasional snow leopard leave tracks that whisper of high mountain survival. The valley's isolation has preserved climbing routes and tiny settlements where wooden houses seem grafted to the slopes like natural growths. From Naltar, the landscape unfurls toward Gilgit's bustling bazaars, and a short journey can take you from silent lakes to terraced apricot groves. That transition, from the hush of mineral-colored water to the human pulse of orchards and markets, is one reason travelers keep returning. Fairy Meadows sits beneath Nanga Parbat's towering Rupal face, hosting one of the world's rare alpine meadows directly beneath an 1,000-meter giant. Do you know Fairy Meadows in Pakistan offers an almost unobstructed sunrise that illuminates Nanga Parbat's sheer granite like a burning monolith? Access begins with a nerve-tingling jeep ride along the jagged Karakoram Road, then a steep trail that transforms isolation into intimacy with the mountain. Locals call it jute, and their stone huts and charcoal fires create a human ribbon across wildflower carpets that bloom short summers bright enough to confuse season calendars. In late July, fields of wild edelweiss and primula ripple under migrant clouds, drawing photographers who chase light as if it were a migratory bird. Wind scours the high grasses by noon, and at night, silence becomes so dense you can hear the mountain exhale. From the meadows you can trace Nanga Parbat's faces, Rupal's vertical wall, Dayamir's craggy teeth, and understand why climbers both worship and fear it. This is where legends of survival and vanished expeditions gather with prayer flags, each knot bound to a story of ascent or loss. Stay overnight, and the sky explodes into stars without city light. Constellations tilt as if to check on the sleeping giant beneath. By dawn, the meadow sings again. Shepherds call, goat bells tinkle, and a new light reveals subtleties of rock and grass missed the day before. Fairy Meadows is not just a photograph. It's a threshold where human stories, fragile ecosystems, and Nanga Parbat's moods collide. Keep following this ridge, and you will find how Pakistan's highest peaks shape not only the skyline, but the lives flowing down from them. Each step here teaches patience. The mountain reveals itself in increments, rewarding those who slow down with perspectives impossible from below. In the next segment, we'll walk that ridge and meet the people who call this fragile paradise home, uncovering stories the maps never tell. Hunza Valley cradles glaciers, orchards, and a rare high-altitude lake system where apricot trees erupt in blossom beneath towering Karakoram peaks, a combination found in almost no other place on Earth. Do you know Hunza Valley's Atabad Lake formed overnight in 2010, when a colossal landslide dammed the Hunza River, transforming a mountain hollow into an impossible sheet of turquoise that swallowed roads and reshaped lives? Here, centuries-old terraced fields cling to slopes like steps to the skiway, irrigated by ancient Karas channels that whisper of human ingenuity surviving at extremes. The valley's two old centers, Karimabad and Gulmit, are dominated by Baltid and Altid forts, stone sentinels that hold stories of traders, Silk Road travelers, and princely courts. From the ridge above Karimabad, you can see the jagged Pasu cones and the glacier-fed Hunza River, tracing a silver ribbon through the valley floor. Rakaposhi rises to the south, a colossal guardian whose snowy flanks feed rivers that irrigate the apricot orchards below. In spring, the apricot blossoms ignite the valley in pale pink, and in autumn the fields burn gold as harvests pour down to local bazaars. Mountaineers and trekkers use Hunza as a gateway into the Karakoram, but many travelers stay for the luminous light that makes stone and snow seem to glow. Local elders recount legends of ancient traders who crossed from Central Asia and left spices, languages, and crafts woven into Hunza's culture. The Karakoram Highway threads through this landscape, connecting Hunza to Gilgit and onward to the high border at Kunjarab, where landscapes shift from green terraces to windswept plateaus. Small guest houses on hilltops open windows to a panorama where time appears to move in mountain rhythms, shepherds guiding their flocks along paths carved by centuries. Yet beneath this poetic scene, there are modern dramas, glacial melt, changing water flows, and a fragile balance between tourism and tradition. To understand Hunza is to walk its stone alleys, taste its saffron and apricots, and listen to stories carried by the river from the ice fields above. In the next segment, we follow one family across terraces toward a glacier stream and discover how ancient water systems still decide life and harvest in this extraordinary valley. We will trace the glacier melt from Rakaposhi slopes down into streams that once powered grain mills and still dictate the rhythm of festivals and planting. Atabad Lake's turquoise waters hide a dramatic origin. In January 2010, a massive landslide dammed the Hunza River and overnight created one of Pakistan's most surreal lakes. Entire villages were submerged, roads were severed, and a new shoreline carved cliffs where orchards once grew. The lake stretches for almost 21 kilometers, its mirror-like surface reflecting the jagged peaks of the Karakoram that hem the Hunza Valley. Local boats now glide past half-submerged houses, a ghostly reminder of nature's speed and the community's resilience. Dozens of families were relocated, yet many returned to transform loss into livelihood, turning the lake itself into a hub for transport and tourism. Fishermen, once riverbound, adapted to netting deeper waters while entrepreneurs launched colorful shikaras and speedboats for visitors. Beneath the calm surface, the lake's depth varies dramatically, fed by glacier melt and seasonal runoff that also link Atabad to higher valleys like Shimshal and the glaciers above Pasu. That connection makes Atabad a sentinel for climate shifts in the Karakoram, where warming alters glacier flow and the very shape of rivers. Engineers rerouted the Karakoram Highway along the lake's edge and carved tunnels through rock, reconnecting remote villages and turning the road into a strategic lifeline. Travelers following that road move seamlessly from Atabad's glassy blue into the terraced orchards and ancient forts of Karimabad, where Hunza culture unfolds. In winter, the contrast sharpens as icy fringes form, and migratory birds trace quiet arcs over the water, while in summer, saffron and apricot trees paint the slopes above. Visiting Atabad is both a study in geology and a lesson in human adaptation, where a sudden catastrophe reshaped landscape and livelihoods in a single sweep. Local guides narrate how the lake taught them new trades daily. Punjab Pass sits at 4,693 meters, the highest paved international border crossing in the world, where the Karakoram meets the Pamirs and Himalaya. Do you know Punjab Pass is home to Punjab National Park, one of the highest altitude protected areas on Earth, where wild Marco Polo sheep and snow leopards still survive? The Karakoram Highway winds up from the fertile terraces of Hunza, climbing through sculpted granite peaks until villagers become the last human outposts before China. Here, the air thins, the nights bite with crystalline cold, and ancient trade routes remain carved into the stone-like secrets. At the border, customs booths squat beneath glaciers and wind-carved ridges, a modern checkpoint set against a landscape older than borders. Yet the real checkpoint is ecological. The pass marks a shift from subcontinental monsoon life to the harsh, high-altitude deserts of Central Asia. Migratory herds and rare birds follow invisible corridors across this high ground, using the same passes traders once used with yaks and caravans. Conservation patrols here track woolly Marco Polo sheep with GPS collars, trying to keep their numbers steady as grazing, mining, and climate change press in. In spring, melting snow fills emerald streams that tumble down to Hunza, feeding apricot orchards and terraced fields that look impossibly green against the gray peaks. From Punjab, the road descends into China's broad valleys, but every kilometer remembers the pulse of traders, trekkers, and soldiers who crossed long before asphalt. Local stories tell of seasonal festivals when highland families crossed to trade salt and tea, a softer echo of the Silk Road's hard commerce. Visitors can stand at the line where two nations meet and look out at an uninterrupted horizon of serrated summits that seem to rearrange the skies. Scientists come here too, measuring glacial retreat with careful eyes, because what happens at Kunjarab ripples down to river basins that support millions. Or Kachura Lake at Shangri-La Resort in Pakistan sits inside an unexpected microclimate where apple orchards and cedar groves hug an alpine lake at elevations most places don't support such lushness. Do you know Lower Kachura Lake is cradled by mountains whose meltwater feeds terraced gardens and water channels that turn stark highland terrain into a verdant pocket that seems to defy altitude? The resort was designed to feel like an intimate village, linking Balti stone houses and riverside walks, so visitors can move from cultivated calm straight into the raw Karakoram skyline. From here, the route threads toward Skardu's bazaars and the jagged approaches to K2, making Shangri-La the soft green pause between granite faces and glacier blue valleys. At dawn, the lake becomes a perfect mirror for poplars and pomegranate trees, turning every small boat into a slow-moving painting against a backdrop of serrated peaks. A short walk uphill opens views where entire tributary valleys spill into the distance, and you can see where the water that feeds the gardens begins its journey from ice. Around the resort, Balti tea houses pour butter tea and serve apricot cakes whose recipes come from families who have lived on these trade routes for generations. Those flavors follow travelers onward to Skardu's markets, where dried apricots and hand-woven cloths recall the caravan lines that once threaded these highlands. Shangri-La's terraced gardens also act as quiet way stations for pheasants and migratory waterfowl, small lives that link this lake to the wider ecology of the region. The same migratory paths trace a line to the vast Deosai Plains, underlining how this cultivated oasis connects to windswept plateaus and distant glacial basins. Local storytellers say, clear nights here make the Milky Way seem to spill down almost to the water's edge, an effect of thin air and near total darkness. Shepherds once steered caravans by the faint shimmer of Lower Kachura's surface, a natural lantern that guided travelers toward Baltistan's safe havens. From Shangri-La, roads either climb to ancient passes like Kaplu or drop towards Skardu town, stitching this lakeside calm into longer mountain journeys. A stay here is often a hinge rather than an end, the tranquil interlude that prepares you for higher glaciers and cliffside monasteries down the road. Stand on the lakeshore, and you begin to understand how Pakistan's highlands can hide secret gardens that rewrite what we expect from mountain life. Cradled against the Margalla Hills, Pakistan's capital is one of the rare world capitals where mountains plunge directly into urban green. Do you know Faisal Mosque sits like a vast white tent at the foot of those hills, its sleek minarets reaching skyward without a traditional dome to interrupt the skyline? The mosque was commissioned in the 1970s and named after King Faisal of Saudi Arabia, who funded its construction. Designed by Turkish architect Vedat Dalakay, its geometry rejects classical Ottoman domes in favor of a modernist angular prayer hall, resembling a Bedouin tent. At over 200,000 square feet, its courtyard and porticos can hold tens of thousands, making it one of the largest mosques in the world. Light plays across its cracked white marble as the sun moves behind the Margalla ridgeline, turning the building into a beacon visible from Islamabad's winding avenues. More than sheer size, the mosque's power comes from how it mediates between nature and nation, linking spiritual practice to the rugged landscape around it. Visitors often arrive from nearby Daman-e-Koh and Shakarparian, descending from hilltop overlooks into the mosque's vast forecourt. Inside, the minimalism of its prayer chamber focuses attention on the act of worship, the play of shadow, and the view through the mosque's open lines toward the hills. The four pencil-thin minarets, inspired by Turkish models, frame the Islamabad skyline and are visible from Rawal Lake's promenades, connecting water, city, and stone. Although built with international materials and an outsider's vision, Faisal Mosque has become an unmistakable symbol of Pakistani identity, photographed on passports, currency, and postcards. Skardu cradles the Deosai Plains, one of the highest plateaus on Earth, where summer turns tundra into a riot of wildflowers. Do you know the Deosai Plains host isolated populations of the Himalayan brown bear, and a landscape so flat, it was once mistaken for a sea by early explorers? From Skardu's river-cut gorges to glacial-fed lakes like Satpara and Shangri-La, the region stitches together extremes of blue and stone. The Indus slices through the valley, carving channels that reflect the sky, and feed oases where apricot orchards cling to terraces. At night, the skies over Skardu are so clear that constellations seem to dip down to touch the mountains. Locals will tell you the stars guide trekkers toward hidden meadows and centuries-old shepherd trails. Beyond the town, ancient Balti forts stand like time-locked guardians above the river bends. Their mud-brick walls frame views of ice-clad peaks, including the distant outline of K2, drawing an impossible contrast between desert rock and eternal snow. Skardu is also the gateway to the towering Karakoram, where glaciers feed some of the world's most dramatic climbs. From here, villages rise on steep terraces, and the culture has adapted to survive with only the briefest summers. The people of Baltistan keep traditions of weaving, woodcraft, and high-altitude farming that feel as ancient as the mountains themselves. Their festivals, prayers, and fragile irrigation channels are woven into the landscape, moving us from human stories back to the glaciers that still shape every horizon. Follow the meltwater upstream, and you reach glacier lakes so turquoise they appear unreal, each connected to the next like beads on a string. Those same glacier routes were once trade arteries, carrying salt, tea, and legends between isolated communities. Skardu unfolds like a living map. Each path hides a secret still waiting. The Karakoram Range holds more glacial ice outside the polar regions than any other mountain system on Earth. Do you know the Siachen Glacier, tucked high in those peaks, is the highest active battlefield on the planet and has shaped local lives in ways few visitors ever see? From those frozen giants, you can follow the rivers down into Hunza, where orchards and ancient watchtowers split the sky. Stories older than most nations. Hunza's terraces spill into Skardu's valley, and from there, the plain of Deosai stretches like a hidden ocean of grass that becomes a sea of wildflowers in the brief summer. Walk the edge of Deosai, and you can almost feel the rupal face of Nanga Parbat pushing up from the earth, a reminder that Pakistan's highest dramas are stitched together by elevation and climate. Those mountains feed the Indus, whose ancient channels have carried civilizations, salt marshes, and unique mangrove forests that cradle species found nowhere else on this subcontinent. Follow the Indus toward the sea, and you'll reach the Makran coast, a place where the slumbering Makran subduction zone has carved a strange lunar coastline of sinkholes and hidden coves. Nearby Hingol National Park flips the script again, with mud volcanoes and sculpted stone like the Princess of Hope. Geological oddities that link the sea to the desert in a single breath. Cross east to the Thar and Cholistan deserts, and you meet human adaptations that mirror the land. Fortified caravan routes, camel fairs, and night skies so unpolluted they reveal forgotten constellations. Then stepping into Lahore's gardens and Islamabad's modern silhouettes, the story shifts from geological spectacle to cultural resilience. Poets, traders, and craftsmen who have long translated landscape into language. Taken together, these places are not isolated spectacles, but chapters in one continuous landscape where glaciers feed rivers, deserts shape trade, and coasts keep the memory of tectonic bargains. If you leave this journey with one image, let it be the connectivity of Pakistan's wild and human geographies, unlikely neighbors that together tell a story far richer and stranger than any guidebook can contain.